will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. I would now like to introduce to you the principal of Monrovia High School, Ms. Lois Warrenbrand.
Mr. President, Lieutenant Governor Gray Davis, Assemblyman Joe Baca, Assemblyman Martin Gallegos, Mayor Bob Bartlett, Monrovia City Council, and ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the students, staff, and community of Monrovia, it is my privilege to welcome you to Monrovia High School. July 22nd, 1996 will be a day long remembered in the history of our school. We are deeply honored, and we thank you for the recognition of the successes of our community. Mr. President, your visit today includes you in the rich tapestry of our Monrovia family. We also acknowledge today as a testimony to every teacher, staff person, parent, and community member who works every day in every community throughout our nation to make a difference in the lives of our children. Our common thread is that we care. We are committed to the challenging task of preparing our students for the 21st century. Daily reminders of the enormity of the responsibility we have undertaken do not deter us from pursuing our vision. Monrovia upholds the right of every child to learn, every teacher to teach, and every parent to become an active participant in the education of our children. But equally as important as maintaining a focus on our vision for success is the courage to believe that we can and will reach our goals. Our nation and our community are depending on us. We cannot and will not let them down. Our children are our most precious resource. What a gift to us that it is us they look to for the guidance that will help shape their futures. We must work together to give it our all. They deserve nothing less. Monrovia High School has worked very hard to provide our students a meaningful educational experience. We know that how we teach is as important as what we teach, for we are the models for their behavior. When treated with respect, students in turn act respectfully. When valued for the strengths and diversity of their ideas, cultures, and questions, they in turn learn to value others. Yes, we have worked very hard to honestly begin the process of improving our school. We are very proud of our accomplishments, but also know that we have only begun the journey. Mr. President, your visit to our school today has given us the affirmation and encouragement to continue our difficult but deeply rewarding task. We hope in turn that you take from us the support you need to continue working on behalf of our children. For the greatest legacy we can leave our country is a student population whose hearts are open to giving and whose minds delight in learning. We can and we will succeed. Welcome to Monrovia.
Good afternoon. I'm Louise Taylor, Superintendent of Schools in Monrovia. President Clinton, it is my pleasure to add my word of welcome on behalf of our Monrovia family of schools and on behalf of our All-America City. My words are spoken with one voice, but they come from many. They come from the Board of Education, our President, Bruce Carter, and our members, Francie Cash, Marty Faith, Yoli Gallardo, and Roger Graziani. They come from our dedicated school staff, our parents, and our students. They come from our partners in the city, Mayor Bob Bartlett, City Council members, Mary Wilcox, Laura Blakely, Phyllis McCarville, Tom Adams, and City Manager Don Hopper. They come from our community business partners, represented today by the Executive Director of the Chamber, Dick Singer, and President Laura Herzig. They come from all of us in Monrovia, all of us in this determined, involved, thriving, all-America community. Today is a celebration of something we all hold dear, our children, their safety, their education. We applaud President Clinton, the message you have urged upon our nation. You have said, keep our kids in school, expect the best, keep them safe, use technology to boost their learning, give them the school buildings they deserve. Form partnerships, schools, parents, communities, working together on behalf of our youth. Do all of this and do it in a caring, nurturing environment that lets our children thrive. We host President Clinton's visit today because those goals are our everyday Monrovia practices. Our students are in school learning. We targeted attendance, encouraging students to come to school every day, informing their parents if they didn't, working with the police on a tough new truancy ordinance. In 1 year, we have gained over 8,000 days of student learning with a remarkable 42% reduction in truancies and unexcused absences. Our students know that we expect the best. We set high standards. And we have been recently honored with an Annenberg grant to support our efforts. And we are proud to report that Monrovia students gain 1.4 years academically on an average for every year of instruction. Our Monrovia students are safe. We have zero tolerance for violence. We work with our police department, officers Jamie Alfaro and Bill Couch, to provide provide the drug and gang prevention program DARE to our students. We teach conflict resolution. Our parent volunteers roam our campuses, providing extra security through smiles. Our students proudly wear their school uniforms. The results? The results, a remarkable reduction in discipline problems and in danger. Our schools are also moving into the technology age. Everyone is aware that California lags the nation in student access to technology. In LA County, we plan to change that. Our Los Angeles County Superintendent of Schools, Don Ingerson, has issued a challenge that LA County will move from the bottom to the top 10% in educational technology in the next 5 years. In this West San Gabriel Valley, our 18 school districts have joined hands with universities and with businesses to create the EdTech Technology Consortium, with our aim to improve student learning through increased access to technology. Monrovia schools will be connected to each other and to the internet this summer. And I am pleased to announce in a new partnership with Microsoft that every classroom in Monrovia will be linked to the internet within the next year. Our schools will be sound and attractive. Like school districts across this nation, our facilities are starting to show their age. But our Board of Education is taking action. Next Wednesday, they will adopt a comprehensive schools facilities plan and take our schools into the next century. A plan formed in partnership with community, business, and school leaders. This beautiful auditorium graces our Monrovia High School campus, supports our school programs, and hosts our gathering today. But this auditorium was built in 1928, and it cries out, like do so many of our buildings, for at least a new roof. We thank President Clinton for keeping our nation aware of the need to bring our schools to the level our students deserve. Finally, our schools, our students are supported by the entire village of Monrovia. Our cooperation is legendary. Partnerships brought the All-America City designation, brought the Helen Putnam Award for City-School Partnership, brought other honors. But above all that, the cooperation of our schools, our parents, our businesses, our community has brought a bounty of programs, assistance, support, guidance, and nurturing to the youth of our town. Monrovia Unified School District does not stand alone in its goals and its accomplishments. It represents over 90 school districts in the county, over 1,000 in the state of California, and public school districts across this nation. We applaud President Clinton for compelling our nation to address the public education issues that are most important to our students. Those of safety, of facilities, of attendance, of high standards, and of partnerships on behalf of our students. That focus has given our nation hope and encouragement that together, as schools, as parents, as communities, together, holding hands, joining hearts, combining efforts, we can and we will bring safety, learning, and promise to the youth of our nation. Thank you. President Clinton, on behalf of our All-America City, I present to you this collage, which was created by an artist graduate of Monrovia High School and depicts the history of Monrovia from its inception in 1886 to this day with our All-America City designation. I hope it serves as a reminder of your visit here. And now it is my pleasure to introduce one of the partners in our work together in Monrovia from the Monrovia Police Department, our Chief of Police, Joe Santoro.
Well, let me tell you, I can't remember a day in my life where I've been so excited, except at the birth of my granddaughter. I'd like to welcome the President to our city. Thank you, sir, for coming. We're honored. Ladies and gentlemen, the many people out in the audience who are our visitors here today, thank you for coming and helping us celebrate this wonderful day. You know, we talk about partnership. I think every person that's been at this podium has talked about partnership. And I think it's important to note what that means, because it doesn't come easily. It's hard work. Partnership means breaking down barriers between people. It means breaking down bureaucratic barriers. Things that sound like, Chief, don't tell me what to do and I won't tell you what to do. Things like, I've already got enough work to do, don't give me any more work to do. God, we've heard all of those things, especially if we're in government. But when we talk about community policing in Monrovia, that is exactly what we're talking about, because it is absolutely essential to the success of the program that we not only have a partnership, but that we are able to break down those barriers that impede us from our mission and from our goal, and that of protecting all of our citizens in our community. And it starts at the top, ladies and gentlemen. It starts with our mayor setting the tone, our city council over here giving us the support, the school district, the department heads throughout city government that say, we're in this together, this concept of community policing, and we're going to work very hard at it to make it successful. And it works with the liaison with our community that gets them to trust us and understand us and work with us on not only addressing crime, but addressing the symptoms that breed crime. Things like lousy neighborhoods, lousy living conditions, drug sales, gang activity, children who have no hope, all of those types of things. So I'm very proud of our community policing program because we've had some remarkable success. And when I say we, I mean everybody in our Monrovia family. Since we started the program in 1990 through 1995, we've had a 31% reduction in serious crime. And for the first 6 months of this year, there's been another 16% reduction in that same serious crime. But when we say numbers, that doesn't mean very much. Percentage points, it doesn't mean very much. But let me give you the hard numbers. That means from 1990 to 1995, 3,000 Monrovians weren't the victims. of robberies, homicides, burglaries, aggravated assault. And that means every year thereafter, cumulative, 1,400 Monrovians will not be the victims of those crimes. And it happened because this community is working together with government and with the police department to do the very best that we can. We meet regularly. At some of our meetings, there are 30 participants, and we brainstorm ideas. How do we solve problems? How do we get a neighborhood cleaned up? What is the root cause of the problem? Not just the symptom, the guy standing on the corner selling raw cocaine. We want to know what's the root cause, what makes that person appear there. And we meet and we think about it. And we have ideas about different programs that come up to help us, like our chaplain program, where we put police chaplains who are ministers in our community, in our police car, in a uniform, out in the field, responding to calls for service, dealing with crisis intervention, conflict resolution, helping the needy and the homeless. We come today with our truancy program. That truancy program isn't any wonderful idea of mine, let me tell you. That's the idea of Officer Bill Couch, one of our DARE officers who's standing right over there. He works every day in our classroom providing DARE. And he had an idea that if we can keep our children in school, where they can be educated, where they can get all the tools they need to be successful in life, and not out on the streets being truant, where they're experimenting with gangs, drugs, and violence and crime, then they're going to have the opportunity to be everything that they can be. And that was his idea. And let me tell you, it's working. Because Louise told you about a statistic, a 42% reduction in the student dropout, in the student truancy rate. But there's also been, and this truancy ordinance has contributed to it, a 54% reduction in the student dropout rate. And you know why that's so important? Because we know that truancy is habit forming. That the child goes to school, decides that he doesn't want to be there, jumps out for a day, nothing happens. And then 2 days, and then 5 days, and then 10 days, or ultimately the student's failing and not able to even pass. And because of that, they drop out completely. So we're talking about a program, a truancy program, where it's not oppressive to our students. It's meant to let them be everything that they can. And it's simply our way of tapping them on the shoulder and getting them back into school where they can achieve that. And it doesn't come easily. It's a lot of hard work of our officers, of our school officials working together that make it happen. I think when we talk about this program, it's just one of many programs in our community policing program. But it's something that's pointed toward our children, the youth of our community. And Mr. President, I was watching the Olympics the other night, and I was watching you, sir, specifically, when they were playing excerpts from Dr. Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream speech. Sir, I noticed the tear in your eye when Dr. Martin Luther King talked about the future of our children. That tear, sir, spoke more of your concern and compassion for our children than any number of words could ever do. Having said that, sir, I'd like to introduce you to my granddaughter, Jennifer. She's sitting right down there in front. And I brought her here today for two very good reasons. Number one, I wanted her to share this wonderful day and never forget it. But more importantly, sir, I wanted her to see your commitment as the president of our country to her future and the future of American children. Sir, I wanted her to hear your dream, a dream that will give her and every child the opportunity to be successful by staying in school, a dream that will keep them away from drugs and gangs and violence, by paying attention to their health, to their nutrition, by paying attention and helping them out of poverty, despair, and hopelessness. Sir, I could tell by that tear in your eye that you believe, as I do, that we are engaged in a mighty battle, a battle for the very safety, future success, or failure of our children. A battle that is taking place in Monrovia and every single city across our nation. A battle that we cannot afford to lose because our most prized possession is at stake here, that of our children. So, sir, with that, I welcome you to our town. We are very honored. On behalf of all of the members of our Community Policing Committee, thank you for being here. On behalf of our officers who are here today in this auditorium, and the great majority of which who are out in the field participating in this event and who work every day for the citizens of this town, thank you, sir, for being here and honoring us.
My name is Yolanda Gallardo. In 1990, some of my neighbors came and told me of the concern they had for the safety of their families. Gangs, drugs, and prostitution were happening on the end of their street. I expressed the same concerns because the same things were happening on my end. I contacted the Monrovia Police Department and I asked for their assistance. Our street was accepted into the Community Activist Policing Program. We were fighting not only to take back our neighborhood, most importantly, we were fighting for the lives and the future of our children. As we worked to take back our neighborhood, the city, schools, local businesses, and residents were working together to establish the Boys and Girls Club of Monrovia. I was asked to join this wonderful organization, and I am truly honored to be a member of its board. The Boys and Girls Club provides a safe place for the children to hang out, to take cooking classes, childcare, sports, to learn social skills and computer classes, just to name a few of the programs that the youth of our community and surrounding areas may use to help them attain their goals. As parents with students in Monrovia schools, we want to do everything we can to help create a safe learning environment for all students. At both middle schools, Parents Walk on Campus is a new program. Our intent is to help the school staff monitor their campuses both inside and outside. The students feel safer with the high visibility of parents on campus. We have 4 children, and they weren't very happy with us when we told them that my husband and I supported uniforms in the schools. The uniform policy was adopted by all elementary and both middle schools in the spring of 1995. 95% of all parents participated in the uniform voting, with 85% voting in favor. As I watched the students walking to school, I noticed you could tell that they walked with pride, their heads held high, smiling to their fellow classmates and smoothing out their uniforms. The uniforms have helped students to focus on classroom assignments rather than on who's wearing designer clothes, who looked good, and who didn't. Uniforms have also helped us with some of our safety concerns. Students not in uniform can easily and readily be seen. This allows school staff to immediately determine whether or not those students belong on their campus. The City of Monrovia has made the youth in our community a priority. We have all heard several times over the phrase, "The children are our future." These words are not spoken lightly by Monrovians. These words are felt deeply in our hearts and have led us to take action. It is the responsibility of all of us, young and old alike, parent or not, to do whatever it takes to ensure that our youth reach their goals and that their dreams of success can come true. Our youth truly are the future of Monrovia, the state of California, our nation, and the world. Thank you very much. Thank you. It is a great honor and a great privilege to be here today, and it is even more of an honor to present to you the President of the United States, Mr. Bill Clinton.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you so much. I have had a wonderful time, and I wish I could just quit now. Because all the people who have spoken have said what I came to highlight for America. I thank Nora Graham for leading the Pledge of Allegiance, and your principal, Lois Wormbrand, and your superintendent, Louise Taylor, Chief Santoro, thank you. Yolanda Gallardo, you're a good speaker. You ought to run for office sometime. Thank you. Thank Lieutenant Governor Gray Davis and the LA District Attorney Gil Garcetti for being here with me, and the other law enforcement officials, Chief Williams and other chiefs from around the area, and law enforcement officers, and the state assembly members, and all the others who've come here. And Mr. Mayor, I want to say a special word of thanks to you and the City Council of Monrovia for making us feel so welcome, and thank you for bringing your mother today. That was a good thing to do. Thank you very much. I want you to know why I wanted to come to this community today. I spend an enormous amount of time as president trying to make our country ready to move into the 21st century. That's why I ran for the job. I had this simple but rather dramatic vision that we were drifting, divided into the next century when we ought to be charging united into the next century. That we really ought to be, in 4 years as we begin this new century and this new millennium, a country first where the American dream is alive for everybody who's willing to work for it. Second, where we have a sense of national community rooted in mutual respect for each other across all the incredible diversity that makes up America. And finally, that we continue to be the strongest force in the world for peace and freedom and security and prosperity. And if that happens, I believe that our children will live in the greatest age of possibility in human history. The children that are in this school system now, 10 years from now, they'll be doing jobs that haven't even been invented yet. And if we do our jobs, they'll be doing that in a peaceful world that has people who are more united in stronger families and neighborhoods and communities, states, and our nation. And we'll be working with other countries around the world to fight our common enemies of this new age, including terrorism and drug running and the proliferation of dangerous weapons and the war is based on racial and ethnic and religious hatred. I believe that the stakes could hardly be higher. But meeting them begins at home. And that's why I wanted to come here. There are things that we have to do in Washington. We have to provide for the national defense and to meet the security challenges of the new era. We have to try to create a framework within which the American people can grow their own economy. We have to, otherwise, a lot of what we do is trying to set rules that enable people to make the most of their own lives. Whether it's the Family and Medical Leave Act that tries to help people succeed at home and at work by saying you don't lose your job if you have to take a little time off when there's a baby born or a sick parent, or the new meat standards for testing that we propose to stop children from getting the E. coli virus in meat. We try to set rules within which people can work together, in which our free market can work, in which people's creativity can work, in which local communities can solve their own problems. I've worked very hard on the economy and on the security issues, but I've also, perhaps because I was governor of a small state for 12 years, worked very hard to put the federal government on the side of people and communities who are struggling to make the most of their own lives and meet their challenges and protect their values and protect their children. We have proposed to help and support communities that wanted to do a number of things that we thought would improve children's lives. And Monrovia is a sterling example of 3 of our major initiatives: the community policing, along with citizen participation, a tough truancy policy, and, of course, the school uniform policy. And I wanted to thank you for that. Now, why is that important? Well, I'll just give you a classic example. So I can come here to you and say, and be telling the truth, 3.5 years ago, we instituted a new economic policy designed to drive the deficit down, get interest rates down, expand trade in American products and services, and continue to invest in our people and their education, in technology, in research, and helping communities make the transition who'd been hurt by defense cutbacks so that we could all grow together. And the results have been good. We've cut the deficit from $290 billion a year to $117 billion a year, over 60%. That's a good thing. The national government is as small as it was in 1965 now. We've reduced it by 240,000. We've reduced 16,000 pages of federal regulations, abolished hundreds of programs, but continued to invest in the fundamental things that matter in education, research, and technology, and infrastructure. And the results have been good. The American people have created 10 million more jobs in the last 3.5 years. We have over 8 million people who've refinanced their homes at lower interest rates. We have 3.7 million new homeowners. We have the lowest rates of inflation and unemployment combined in 30 years. We learned today that in the last 2 years, home ownership in America had grown at its fastest rate in 30 years in the last couple of years. That's all a very good thing, and we're better off than we were 4 years ago. But I don't mind you clapping for it, but let me make the point here. If you could hear me say that, and you could know with your mind it is true, but if you lived in a community where your number one worry was whether your children were safe, whether they were in school, whether your community was functioning, then it would still leave a hole in your heart. You would say, I hear that, but why am I not happy? Because we know that big statistics don't matter in individual lives unless good things are happening in individual lives, in families, on blocks, in communities. And that's where you come in. I hope by coming here today that we will put a face on the idea that the American people do not have to tolerate unacceptable rates of crime. The American people do not have to tolerate worrying whether their children are safe. The American people do not have to tolerate schools that are dysfunctional. If they will get a hold of their communities and work with their schools and work with their police departments, we can turn this country around, and we can take this country into the 21st century with the American dream alive for everybody, with a country that's coming together, not drifting apart. And you are the example of what every community can do if they will. I was delighted to hear your superintendent make the announcements about the building program. I just announced an effort in Washington to put a few $1 billion over the next 4 years into school construction. For the first time, the national government's ever done it by lowering the interest rates, for net new construction, things that were not going to be done anyway, to try to help all of our schools rebuild, including the poorest schools, to encourage them to go out and get their taxpayers to help too, and say we'll try to ease the burden. We're working hard on trying to do what you just announced for next year, making sure that within 4 years, every classroom and every library in America is hooked up to the internet. But here's another challenge for you. We're also working hard this summer to get 100,000 teachers to train 500,000 other teachers to use the internet with their students properly. Now think about this. And let me give you some idea of what this can mean. I was in New Jersey the other day with the Vice President, and I think New Jersey has the second highest per capita income in America. But it also has some of the poorest school districts in America. I was in one of the poorer school districts where a huge generation of the students are in a huge percentage of the students are in first-generation immigrant families. This school district, compared to those enormously wealthy and wonderfully well-staffed and well-equipped suburban schools in New Jersey, had a high dropout rate, a low college-going rate, a low performance rate, a lot of problems. And Bell Atlantic went in there in partnership with the community and with the schools. They put computers in the schools. They put computers in the homes of some of the family members. And they taught the teachers to use the equipment and the software so that those children would literally have access to the same quality of knowledge that any children in any school district anywhere in this country had. Within 2 years, the dropout rate was below the state average, and the test scores were above the state average in a poor immigrant school district. We can do this if we'll do it together, and that's what you are doing. I was delighted to hear your chief talk about the statistics you've achieved with community policing. When I became president after the 1992 election, I had already actually been to Los Angeles County in 1990, I believe it was, or 91, to look at a community policing experiment. I'd seen them working all over the country. And the most important thing to me was that they proved that people didn't have to put up with unacceptable crime rates, but that the police could not do it alone. The police had to go back to the streets, but the people who lived on the streets had to come back to the police. And they had to work together hand in hand. So when I asked the Congress to adopt the new crime bill, the most highly publicized parts of it, and they were important, were first passing the Brady bill and second passing the ban on assault weapons. And by the way, since the Brady bill became law, no hunter has lost a rifle, contrary to the rhetoric. But 60,000 felons, fugitives, and stalkers have not been able to buy handguns, and it's a good thing. It's a good law, and it's the right thing to do. Anyway, the most important thing over the long run about the crime bill was that it contained a mechanism to put 100,000 more police officers on the street. These police departments we were asking to go out and adopt community policing Many of them were in areas where, as with the nation, the violent crime rate had tripled in 30 years, gone up by 300%, but the police forces had only increased by 10%. Literally, we had police departments that were overwhelmed by trying to catch up to crimes that had already been committed without the resources to reorganize themselves to prevent crime from being committed in the first place and use friends and neighbors to catch the criminals once they do commit crimes. And so we began this work. We've now funded 43,000 of these police, over 6,000 of them to the state of California, over 2,000 to Los Angeles County. And it's beginning to make a difference, but not because of anything we did in the national government. All we did was to try to give more communities the tools to do what you're doing here. Because you can achieve these results, and you deserve an enormous amount of credit for doing it. What I'm hoping is that by being here today, we'll get enough publicity out of this so that 200 or 300 other communities will call here in a week or two. They'll call the principal, the superintendent, the chief of police, the mayor, and they'll say, help me do this. Help me do this. On the crime issue, let me also encourage you not to let up. Don't let up. Keep helping the police. Keep working with them. These crime statistic drops are very impressive, but the crime rate is still too high in America. It is still too high. And it will be too high until you are surprised when the evening news leads off with a crime story. That's when you'll know that we're in good shape, when you're surprised. Let me also say that these things you are doing in the schools with the truancy and the uniform initiatives may wind up being the most important anti-crime initiatives you'll ever adopt. Because we have had one deeply troubling development in the last 3.5 years that if you had told me this in 1992, I would not have believed it. For the crime rate is about to go down 4 years in a row, but the rate of violent crime among young people between the age of 12 and 17 is still going up. The rate of cocaine use in America has dropped 1/3, but the rate of casual drug use among young people between the ages of 12 and 17 is still going up. And as any educator can tell you, when school starts this fall, there'll be almost 52 million young people in school, the largest class in public schools since the baby boom. And the people that are coming in now into kindergarten and first grade for the next several years are going to be very, very large classes in our country. We have about 6 years to get ahead of this juvenile crime and violence and drug problem before we have a problem on our hands that will be almost unmanageable, unbearable, and painful. So that's another reason I'm here. That's another. I know it. I told the principal and the superintendent and the chief I hoped I caused a lot of work for them in the next few weeks, because other communities have got to do this. We simply cannot let the largest number of school children in history come into our schools and grow up into adolescence in a country that is coming apart when it ought to be coming together, when there is no excuse for it, since we know what to do and you're doing it. That's the point that I want to drive home to America. Let me say that on this anti-truancy program, this may seem simple to you, and where's the officer, Chief, you gave credit to? He didn't stand up. Where is he? Stand up. Where'd he go? Is he over there? Thank you. Give him another hand. Now, you might ask yourself why other people don't do this. The answer is it probably hasn't occurred to them, and they may not think they can do it. You have proven that it can be done, and you can get results. In the school uniform policy, I understand that when you said it was unpopular with your kids the first time you mentioned it, I can go to any place in America and speak to young people and have them cheering and stomping until I mention student uniforms. And then they go, yeah. But, you know, you may know this, but I went to Long Beach a few weeks ago, and I had 2 students stand up and talk about it. And one of the young people said, we got to pick our uniforms, and we picked green and white because the gangs were heavy in our area, and they wore red and blue. And it's the first time in 3 years I've been able to walk to and from school without looking over my shoulder. That's worth something. And then one of the things that was said here about it, a young woman said, when she said, it's wonderful now, but it's as good for the wealthy kids as it is for the poor kids, because now we judge ourselves by what we are on the inside, not what we have on the outside. These are good values to get across to our young people. And so I just want to encourage you in this. Not very long ago, I was in New Orleans talking about their curfew policy. New Orleans used to have one of the highest crime rates in the country, and they had all these kids on the street at night. So they started a curfew policy, as a number of other cities have, that was very rigorous, but they also set up a curfew center manned by ministers and by psychologists and by healthcare professionals. And I was so moved when I heard the story of one 7-year-old boy that was picked up wandering the streets at midnight, and they took him to the curfew center, and the lady who was working that night said, "What do you want?" And he said, "I want somebody to hold me." Now, if that boy had been found 8 years later, he might have been booked into jail for a felony. Maybe he won't be now, because he found somebody to hold him. We have got to take responsibility for the fabric of our children's lives in this community. One of you kindly mentioned the concept village that my wife put in her book. We are responsible for all these kids. One of the reasons this juvenile crime rate is still going up is there are too many of these children out here virtually raising themselves on the street. And they don't know how to do it. It's hard for parents if you do know how to do it. They don't know how to do it. People get into gangs partly because everybody wants to be part of something that's bigger than they are. We all do. When you let kids wear school uniforms, you're putting them in a good gang. The police wear uniforms, they're in a good gang. That's what it is. You identify yourself with something that's bigger than you are. That's what it is. I hope you will all become apostles. I bet every one of you has friends or family members that live in other communities, perhaps in other states. They need to know about this. Because as president, we can put out guidelines to show schools how they can adopt these uniform policies and have no legal problems. How they can have truancy policies and have no legal problems. How they can have curfews and have no legal problems. That's what we're doing. The Department of Education is putting out guidelines on character education and other kinds of reforms that are based on teaching values and helping to recover our kids. We can pass a safe and drug-free schools bill and give more funds to more communities so everybody can have a DARE program like you do, because they work and they really make a difference in children's lives. We can, in other words, give you the tools that you need to do more with your own community, your own family, and your own education, your own future. But we can't do any of it for you. And if you look at the real challenges facing America, the fundamentally critical ones are those that will have to be dealt with one-on-one, child by child, family by family, school by school, neighborhood by neighborhood. And my job is to try to highlight these things and to see that we in Washington do what we can to support you and give you the tools you need to succeed. But if every community in America tomorrow would decide to organize themselves the way you have and to do what you have done, the differences would be breathtaking within a matter of 2 years. That is what I am hoping and praying for. Because I'm telling you, there is no country in the world as well positioned as the United States for the 21st century. We understand what it means to be in a global village. We understand what it means to be in an era dominated by information and technology where education is at a premium. And unlike most other countries, everybody from every place else in the world is already here anyway. Which is an enormous asset for us. I wish you could have been with Hillary and me the other day when we went to visit the Olympic team in Atlanta. We had them all in an auditorium like this, and we had a lot of the senior Olympians that came back who were the heroes of these present-day Olympians when they were little kids. And we had a great time. But I looked out at them, and it just occurred to me, you know, if they were all separated, just walking around in the village, you might think the Americans were part of one of the Asian teams, one of the Middle Eastern teams, one of the Latin American teams, one of the Nordic teams, one of the European teams, one of the African teams, because we're from everywhere. We're bound together by the ideals and the values enshrined in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence, and by a sense of mutual respect and the ability to work together. And that's the last point I want to make. Every single thing we have celebrated here today is rooted in the willingness of people here to work in partnership. I'll bet you in all these projects you've talked about, when you're enforcing the truancy laws or implementing a school uniform policy or walking the neighborhood blocks, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what your race is, doesn't matter what your religion is, doesn't much matter what your income is. Nobody can hide from these things today. We're all in this together. And I see you out here sitting together, applauding your local leaders, applauding what you have done together. And all I can say to you is, please, 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 number one, keep it up, find ways to increase it. And number two, find ways to talk to your friends and neighbors around the state and around the country about this, because what you are doing will determine whether we can go raring into the 21st century united and strong. Thank you, and God bless you.